What's going on? I appreciate everybody for tuning in this late weekend, this late Saturday. I always got to check because my mic was wilding out the last time. But hey, my name is Marcus. Here we do attorney reactions, finance topics, current events, trending news, all of that stuff. And hey, if you're checking this video out, welcome to a new format because there's just so many stories that I want to talk about or that people want me to talk about. Somebody emailed me the other day. I was like, "Hey, what do you think of the YSL prosecutors? Are they doing their job?" So it's so much stuff that I need to cover, and I just don't have time to cover it. So I thought, man, it might be dope to just kind of do a recap of things that were going on during the week that were actually newsworthy. So we're gonna see how this go. Y'all let me know in the comments, hey, if it's a fair or foul, thumbs up or thumbs down, and all that good stuff. Disclaimer: licensed attorney, not your attorney, not legal, not financial advice, just me giving my opinion and takes on topics and current events. And I think we should start out with was probably the most, I ain't gonna say the most frustrating, but one of the most frustrating. I really don't like criminals, okay? Like the older I get, the more I love laws and ordinances and things like that. I don't want y'all to be too. I'm turning into an old ass grouchy man. I don't want y'all to be too loud. It was people who were building a home beside me at one point, and they were doing construction on like a Sunday. And I went over there. Was like, "Yo, it's Sunday. Y'all can't do construction on outdoors. Where y'all think y'all at?" like I don't want to be bothered. And criminals are the absolute worst, especially people who take advantage of vulnerable persons, elderly, children, people who have mental, cognitive disabilities, defects, pets, just essentially the people who can't fight for themselves. So my son actually sent me this story. I thought it was interesting, and it looks like this is going to be one where it looks like law enforcement actually did their job. So let's go ahead, cue this up, and take a look at this ridiculous video, and then we're going to see how it looks like it's going to end.
Look at this video. They're apparently celebrating as an 86-year-old is recovering. He was the victim of what amounts to a heartless attack. San Antonio police say that man robbed and left bleeding by two people who then gave each other high fives.
And I don't know, like this, and by the way they running, they look like some old ass people. But I don't know. It was I don't. This may sound wild, but it was a point in time where even criminals had some type of like moral compass or code. Like, if they were gonna take a purse from a lady who was 79 years old, they weren't gonna like rough her up or nothing. She's 79. They just take the purse and run. These new guys out here, it's just different. It's just wild, and it's really fucking annoying.
Give each other high fives.
Katrina Weber shows us those suspects caught on camera and tells us what the victim wants to happen next.
A celebration steeped in someone else's suffering. The man and woman seen in this video giving each other a high five could soon be in handcuffs if San Antonio police have their...
You have to be completely evil to jack up an elderly guy to take his money. And I mean, really, you have to be just a diabolical person.
way. They say the happy pair had just pulled off a robbery inside a West Side home that left 86-year-old Jose Santos Hernandez bleeding.
All right. And look at this guy. I mean, looking at that door frame and the way he's living, this guy isn't standing in a lap of luxury or anything like that. So whatever they took from him, he probably had to pinch and save for that shit.
He asked us not to show his face, but Santos Hernandez has the marks all over his body from his ordeal. The bandage covers a cut on his elbow, and he has bruises on his hands. He says he's thankful to God he wasn't stabbed. Based on what police say, it appears the July 16th attack at his home on West Commerce was planned. According to the police report, this started with that woman in the video knocking on the door and asking for a glass of water. Police say while Santos Hernandez was busy getting that for her, the man came in and attacked.
Always keep your screen door locked when you open it for a stranger. Like, hey, if something gonna happen, you're gonna have to do it through this screen door. Always keep your screen door locked, especially if you're an older person or a child or something like that.
Nomás llegó y me agarró y me echó al suelo.
The senior says the man grabbed him and threw him on the floor as they struggled over his wallet. Police say the couple got away with $400 in cash. A camera nearby caught them celebrating.
Pues ya digo, no, hombre, ya que ellos, así como andan.
Santos Hernandez says the money doesn't really matter, that the suspects probably already spent it. But he does hope that they are caught and punished, keeping them from causing pain to anyone else.
All right, so when my son sent me that story, I was like, yo, these people are diabolical. But then I thought, man, I hope they catch these assholes, because these guys are pretty terrible. So now let's go back to this same story. And this is one of the, I ain't gonna say few instances. I'm not gonna say few instances, but this is one of the unique instances where law enforcement were really on top of things. Yeah. Why the Ellie? The couple is, yeah, I agree, is absolutely terrible. And I'm gonna keep it a buck with y'all. Hey, Mama DFD, I was like, hey, come on, Mama DFD, we gotta go get you a handgun. And you know, my mom's is older. She doesn't have the dexterity in her hands to like rack a slide. I was like, oh, that's cool. You don't need that. Let's just get you a revolver. So you go playing with Mama DFD if you want. Like, hey, see, like, hey. So I mean, hey, it's stuff out there. If your older family members, hey, if they are responsible, they got all of their mental faculties. Hey, there's nothing wrong with having them have something at the crib to protect themselves. That's kind of my look. And for the older folks, get a revolver. That way they ain't gotta try to rack the slide. And if their hands is a little bit weak or nothing like that, I'm just saying that's what's going on over here. I can't have my moms out here just vulnerable to anything that may potentially happen. Let's see how this story end up turning out so far. And I think it's good news.
Breaking news first at 10, a busy night as we are following several new arrests in different cases. First, the woman seen on video high-fiving a person after allegedly robbing an elderly man is behind bars tonight. Take a look this afternoon.
Look at this person right here. This person is heartless and has no soul to send some goon in there after an 86-year-old guy to rough him up and leave him with cuts and lacerations. So I'm actually glad that she took this mugshot. I'm glad that she in custody. This is where she need to be. I'm glad that it looked like the video footage, the community, all of that stuff worked how it was supposed to work, because you know how it is. Like, oh, people in the hood don't want to tell and all that. Fuck that. You can tell on somebody. It's not snitching if you're a civilian, okay? I don't think a lot of people don't know what the definition of snitching is. Snitching is two people who are engaged in wrongdoing, and one of those persons who are engaged in wrongdoing tells. If you aren't engaged in wrongdoing, there is no snitching. It is just you doing a job. So shout out to the cops, because this person right here deserved exactly what the hell they got.
Police arresting 47-year-old Adriana Dolores Garza. According to online records, she is facing 2 robbery charges. Court documents state that several anonymous tips helped identify her. And you may recall police releasing this surveillance video you see on your right. So the robbery happened on July 16th at a home on West Commerce. Garza and a man are allegedly seen on this video running away from the victim's home and high-fiving each other. According to new documents we obtained tonight, Garza lured the victim to the door. Investigators say that when he opened it, the man attacked the 86-year-old who you see here and then took $400 from him. Tonight, there's still no word if the other man has been arrested in that case.
So that's a case that actually turned out well. It was despicable, but it turned out well. Let me get to the comments. Bob, hey, I appreciate you tuning in. Bernie, I appreciate you tuning in, sis, the homie. And my guy, BTB, salute to you too. Those two should be put in jail 10 years, no probation, no early release. I agree. Anybody who take advantage of vulnerable people like that are like the lowest of the low. Like, yeah, but that's how I go, though. Those people walk around, and if I were there and there's a 90-year-old man there, they're going to be like, oh, we ain't going to mess with this dude. He might actually try to put up a fight. So, those people are the scum of the earth. Shout out to everybody in the chat. And so, you know, I wanted to just start it out because I fucking hate criminals, but it's good when the justice system works how it should be. It's good when the community is involved and actually get losers like that off of the street. Now we're gonna talk a little bit. This is a little bit of an interesting topic before we get into, because I know everybody waiting for the debate stuff, and we're gonna get to that. We're gonna get to the debate stuff. But before we go there, I want to talk a little bit about what the hell. Okay, I was a little bit confused. Let me go ahead and cue up this video. But we want to talk about the NFL money and a quarterback named Tua Tagovailoa. And his brother actually used to play last year for the University of Maryland at College Park as a quarterback. Now this dude signed the, I think, $212 million contract last season. So his rookie deal, you know, was a little light. He played out his rookie deal. He had a great season, even though I think he's a C+ quarterback, but had a great season. Contract in excess of $200 million. And I think $167 million is guaranteed. So over the course of this dude's career, he's made well over $100 million. But there's a big problem. This dog. He literally came in here with, did y'all hear that? He came in here with this. Now he waiting for me to throw it. I'm going to close my office door when he try to bring it back in here. This dude ridiculous. Bro. Come here. Come. All right, so everybody can see who always interrupting me. This little thing right here is always interrupting me. You better not try to lick me. Good job. But yeah, that's supposed to be my daughter dog, but now he just turned into mine. But anyway, this quarterback, in excess of $200 million, $167 million guaranteed, but he has a serious problem. And his problem is this dude is fragile. I'm not necessarily going to say fragile, but he is extremely susceptible to concussions. Last season, he has gotten one of the worst concussions that I've ever seen. It was really terrible. If you would have saw it on camera, you would have been like, damn, I hope that dude is okay. And it wasn't even a super crazy hit. It's like he'll get tackled, fall, and when he fall, his head hits the back. His back of his head hits the turf and just concussed. And this has kind of historically been happening. And he had one recently. The other thing, they always occur on prime time. Every time his teams play Sunday night football, Monday night football, Thursday night football, this dude just gets a ridiculous concussion. And so let's go ahead. I'm going to cue up this video real quick so we can see. Because the question is, should this dude actually walk away from the game that has given him so much? We're not going to watch this whole video. It's not that long, but we just want to get the meat and potatoes.
And concern is growing over Dolphins quarterback Tua Tagovailoa after he suffered another concussion on the field. Tagovailoa struggled to get back up after the big hit. Now some are urging the 26-year-old star to consider stepping away from the game for good. ABC's Lara Spencer has the latest.
He's going to run for the first down.
A scary moment on the football field, putting the issue of player safety front and center.
Here it is again.
Miami Dolphins star quarterback Tua Tagovailoa taking a hard shot to the head from the Buffalo Bills' Damar Hamlin.
Think about it. The quarterback Tua just got a concussion, and the person who hit him, Damar Hamlin, was the gentleman who a year ago had a damn cardiac arrest event on the field. Football dangerous as fuck. Like, I'm glad my son is a skateboarder. Like, and my son did some dangerous stuff. He competed in martial arts. He got choked out a couple of times. But I would rather deal with that, a one-on-one combat sport, than the constant hits that a person would have to take from a contact sport like football. And yes, he is married. He's recently married. I believe he has one child too. So you want to go check on him?
Late in the third quarter of the primetime game, Tagovailoa running the ball, lowering his shoulder and colliding with Hamlin.
He takes a shot at the 6-yard line.
Tua taking a brutal hit to the head. His hands appear to seize, an immediate sign of neurological trauma known as fencing. rolling on his side, holding his helmet.
I was just worried about my guy, not something that you ever want to be a part of. You know, you hope not to.
Former NFL star Des Bryant saying, that's it. The NFL has to do the right thing. Tua has had entirely way too many concussions. Hall of Famer Shannon Sharp agreeing, saying Tagovailoa should shut it down, writing, his concussions are getting worse and worse, and he's a young man with his entire life ahead of him. And Super Bowl champion Damian Woody telling Scott Van Pelt last night,
This game of football, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things.
Now, again, this dude has over $100 million that he made. He's married, 29, young child, I believe. And the question is, should he walk away from the game? One, a lot of people are saying the NFL should force him to walk away. Legally, they can't force him to walk away. The Dolphins did take some mechanisms to try to protect their interests because they knew this dude was fragile. So essentially what they did, they got an insurance policy for like 49 point something million dollars in the event that this dude is injured and he can no longer play. So they will be able to recoup some of that money, but they would still have to eat damn near the majority of it. The NFL can't stop this dude from playing. It's interesting too, because I don't know if y'all noticed, but the life expectancy for an NFL player is like 6 years lower than it is for an average guy. That's crazy. That's actually wild that NFL players live 6 years less than the average male. No matter black, white, whatever their race is, they generally live a harder life just from the impact and everything that they take. Me personally, if it were me, I'm chucking up the deuces. $100 million, 29, you can find something else to do. You can not do shit and still be fine with $100 million and live off the interest. There's a lot of options. I seriously doubt that this dude isn't going to walk away. I would be shocked because, one, when you're dealing with head trauma like that, you don't know. He could be perfectly fine to play tomorrow. I doubt it, or next week. Or he could be jacked up for 2 or 3 months. You never know when it comes to head trauma. I don't think he's going to sit it down because a lot of guys who play sports like that, I have 2 friends who played in the NFL, both of which were good, both of which were all pros. I mean, made several Pro Bowls, like 6 or 7, but for injury, they probably might Hall of Fame. I don't know. I don't know if they got enough time in, but both of these guys were Pro Bowl level players. And I've talked to them, I've asked them, and they said they've been playing football since the age of 6. So it's really hard for someone who's 29 to pivot and find out what else do I want to do with my life from 30 to whatever, 76, 80. Like most of them don't think that. They kind of think of, I got to secure this NFL bag for as long as I can secure it. But I'm telling you right now, if that was my son, family member, brother, I'd be like, bro, you got your money. You need to go sit down. That shit is not worth the risk. And Lord forbid you don't want to some shit to happen on the field that you can't recover from. That's always a possibility. Flag football for all. Hey, flag football is in the Olympics, man. I watched a flag football game from them Olympic flag football players who are going to play. Man, them dudes could play. I was like, man, these guys, if they were a little bit bigger, they might be NFL players. But me personally, I'm not early on, my son wanted to play like football and stuff. And I kind of was like, nah, I kind of pushed him into baseball. I was like, go play baseball. There's none of that physical threat. The contracts are way better. I pushed him towards baseball, anything besides football. Because I've been to football games and I've seen like young kids, like I'm talking about 12, 13-year-olds get their bell rung. And that shit is terrible. I just couldn't do it. He needs to quit. This injury is serious and can take months to heal. Brain damage is no joke. Hey, from somebody who had multiple brain surgeries, I agree. When it comes to what's going on up here, you got to protect that shit at all costs. I think. What more do you need? Like, if you made $100 million in your career, what can you buy? Let's say 50 million after taxes. What more? How much more money do you want? At 50, at some point, there's a threshold where everything that I want, I can buy, and $50 million is about it. Like 1 million, nah, you can't really buy that much. When you start talking about $10 million, for me, if I got $10 million sitting in an investment account, 10 million and 30 million, my lifestyle is probably going to remain about the same. I don't know. I don't think I'm going to start blowing my nose with $100 bills and putting diamond powder on my as seasoning on my food. That's just me. I agree 100%. I agree 100%. We actually going to get into a real good discussion about economics and stock market returns too. So I'm kind of trying to speedball through this stuff because the debate talk is going to be good. And y'all in the comments and yeah, stay home with your wife and kids and enjoy life. I agree. But people in the comments, they had me laughing. I did a video once and during the live, the lady was like, "Oh, he's a Trump supporter. Yeah, we could tell who he's voting for." And then I did another video and somebody in the comments was like, "Man, you talk disparagingly about Donald Trump." I was like, I call it like I see him. When somebody do good shit, I don't care what they do. I give them credit for it. If somebody do some whack shit, I'm gonna be like, "Oh, that's kind of whack." I try to call it down the middle personally, but it's hilarious because like I get it from both sides. The Harris fans are like, "Oh man, this dude's MAGA," and then the MAGA fans like, "I don't know, you make some disparaging remarks about Trump." I said, what did I say? I said he's a convicted felon, and someone in the comments said, "Oh, he's not convicted. Only a jury can convict you." And so I was like, "That's not how the law works." I was like, she said only a judge can convict you. And I was like, "Nah, that's not how the law works." I was like, so when a jury finds a murderer or guilty of murder, he's a convicted murderer, right? Like, so, I mean, just, I don't know. It's a little bit interesting, but the politics talk is going to be a little funny. Remind me of the player who heart stopped last year. The hit looked about the same. The person who heart stopped last year was the person who tackled him. Damar Hamlin, yeah, I did a story on Damar Hamlin. Damar Hamlin, who heart stopped last year, was the person who made the tackle that caused this guy's concussion. That's just so ironic. I mean, I don't know. I just don't think like, I don't know. I had a buddy older than me who played in the NBA for a long ass time. And I can remember once I was maybe freshman year of college and I was coming from my mom's house walking down and I saw him and he's older. He was like, "Oh man, the NBA life is cool, but it's really not that good." Because he was maybe like 42, but he was like, "I could barely walk in the morning." His knees were so shot from hooping, he could barely walk. He was like, he couldn't even pick up his daughter. His daughter was like maybe 5. Like a 5-year-old, you should be able to pick him up and throw him across the street if you really wanted to. Yeah, sentencing has not occurred yet. No, a conviction is when you're found guilty. So if let's backtrack on this so we can get this right. If I was on trial for murdering because I killed a poor 87-year-old man and the jury found me guilty, I'm a convict. That's actually a conviction. Now, when you appeal it, it's different questions, it's different things, but the definite, because when I responded to the comment, I actually put the definition of a conviction in there. And the conviction can be handed down by a judge if it's a bench trial with just a judge or a jury. So the sentencing and the conviction are two different things. So the sentencing and the conviction are two different things because you file your appeal before the sentence. But if you weren't convicted, what would you have to appeal? It has to be a conviction in order for there to be an appeal. It has to be someone, if it's civil, found liable in order for there to be an appeal. I already got in this discussion. I'm not gonna go back down this road, but it's a conviction. Look up a conviction and tell me if I'm wrong. But I literally looked up the definition because I was like, I feel like I know what a conviction is. And, you know, if he wasn't convicted, I would have made sure not to use that express language because I don't, hey, you don't want to get no lawsuit get over on this side of the game. But now let's get into a story that's actually a little bit more legal. We're gonna get into it, and this is one of our favorite. I don't know if he's our favorite low life, but he is. I don't know if he's our favorite low life, but he is a low life. Let's go ahead and pull up this article. So we can take a look at what's going on. All right. Essentially, Diddy, I ain't gonna say our favorite, but a terrible person, clearly, had a $100 million judgment issued against him in a sexual assault lawsuit, and he won it via a default judgment. I'm not even gonna go into this article because I'm gonna be honest, I don't even want to see this dude's face. I don't even want to see this dude's face. Now, let me tell you, in short, the Reader's Digest version of what happened. There was an inmate who's currently in custody. He filed the lawsuit against Sean Combs, Diddy, Puff Daddy, Bad Boy, whatever you want to call him, and his company, essentially alleging sexual assault, sexual misconduct. Diddy has a shitload of those going on ever since the Cassie lawsuit. They just been coming out of the woodworks. And so essentially what happened, he files this lawsuit. Diddy never shows up to court, which strikes me as odd. Like, you're a billionaire. Well, he lost billionaire status, I believe. But he's essentially one of three hip hop billionaires, too, because Kanye West got kicked out. It makes no sense why you have litigation and not reply. A default judgment means, yo, you have notice of this legal action against you, and you didn't show up. And just because you didn't show up, by default, you automatically lose. So this guy gets a default judgment against Diddy. Now, there is some speculation out there that maybe the judge had it out for him or something, because it is a little weird. Diddy's team is arguing that they never had any notice of the litigation at all. They didn't hear about the litigation until TMZ called them and said, yo, what's up with this default judgment for $100 million? So essentially, if I file a lawsuit against you, you have a right to due process, notice, and to be heard. So I have to actually serve you with notice of the lawsuit. Most times that's done by the sheriff's office. You pay a sheriff, whatever, $50. They'll execute the delivery of it and serve you. And then once that person serves you, there's actually an affidavit where that person signs under penalty of perjury that, hey, I've served DFD with the complaint, so he's on notice of the litigation against him. That apparently, according to Diddy and his team, never happened. Now, the plaintiff who got the default judgment said, hey, we actually did serve him. We served him at his residence in Michigan, which Diddy's team is saying, hey, that's bogus because we haven't lived at that Michigan residence and hadn't been at that property in 3, 4, 5 years, something actually egregious. So there's a little confusion. In addition, it looks like Diddy's lawyer actually did some research and they found out that this inmate has a track record or a pattern of filing these types of lawsuits against celebrities in the hopes that he would get a default judgment. So whether or not Diddy was actually served with notice of the lawsuit is actually in question. The other thing that kind of looks sketch is the court just articulated that the judgment is $100 million. And normally that's not what happened. If I file a lawsuit against you for whatever, $1 million, you don't show up to court, I win a default judgment. Normally there's a whole nother hearing. And in that hearing, I have to present evidence to the court to prove that my damages were $1 million. They're not just going to give it to me because I asked. That's just as a way to like, hey, this dude didn't show up, but we still not going to necessarily screw him over and rake him over the hot coals. So it looks like the service of process is an issue. It looks like it may not have been done, or potentially, hey, people can lie on an affidavit and say they served somebody when they didn't. That remains to be seen, but it's something sketch going on with the service of process in this case. And the other thing that just doesn't make sense, it looked like they didn't have a hearing where the plaintiff had to actually prove that he had $100 million worth of damages. So long story short, Diddy's going to challenge this. I think that he's probably going to win on this one. I just can't see you having that much fucking money. I can't see you having that much money and your lawyers aren't aware of a lawsuit. Like that just doesn't make any sense to me. So we're gonna see how this play out. And this isn't the first time. I did another video where a former Sinaloa cartel member sued Diddy from jail. That case got thrown out, but it was kind of the same MO as this. But this goes to show you, once you do some stupid shit and open yourself up to litigation, everybody is going to come out in the world works, and whether you did business with them or not, and unless you touched their butt, unless you owed them something because you violated the contract. So he played stupid games, he did stupid shit, so now he has to suffer the consequences of these stupid ass prizes. Now we're going to get into the real conversation. I want to close all these other windows out because I don't want anything to get confused. All right, I got a lot going on here. I want to make sure I get the right videos up. All right, so we're gonna talk about this presidential debate, okay? And I normally don't talk, politics. I just kind of call them like I see them. Generally, I'm not impressed with either candidate personally. But we're gonna do two things. I'm going to give my reaction to the debate because I actually watched it. I was really excited. Like, oh, man, this is going to be like must-see TV. And then we're going to go over each person's economic policy. Now, on that, no opinion. I'm going to just give y'all, hey, this is what their economic policy is. And I also got some data points with regard to how the stock market performs under each president. But we're going to talk about the debate, okay? Before I even go to the video, generally, if you already know who you're voting for prior to the debate, most people are going to say that person won. That's just kind of how it goes. It's like a boxing match. If you're a Mayweather fan, you're going to be like, oh, Mayweather washed him. If you a Miguel Cotto fan, you're going to be like, oh, nah, Miguel Cotto, Pacquiao won, and he was injured. You're going to have all of these excuses. Everybody roots for their team. I get it. That's just kind of the name of the game. As for me, my personal view is, this is my personal view. Regardless of whoever the hell is sitting in the White House, I'm going to make sure the most important thing is what's going on in my house. So I'm going to make sure I got my shit together because as far as I'm concerned, no politician has ever given me an absolute free ride and done something that like, man, wow, this really changed my life. All the shit that really changed my life were the efforts I put in. And that's across the board for most people, unless you like, I don't know, got like $1 billion company, then maybe your view will be different. So with the debate, I'll tell you, it started out interesting and I was shocked because if it were a basketball game, the first quarter, I think I gave to Donald Trump. The very first quarter I gave to Donald Trump because y'all correct me if I'm wrong, but when I watched that debate, the first 15 to 20 minutes, I thought he was calm. He seemed poised. He brought up some actually salient points. And I was like, man, where's this guy been? I really watched. And I was really shocked the first 20 minutes or so. I did laugh, though, because I was like, he didn't want to shake her hand. Either he didn't want to shake her hand or he did a power play. And this happens in corporate America all the time. People be like, oh, it's nice to meet you. You got two bosses and CEOs. One will stand still and the other one will like, no, you come to me to shake my hand because it's kind of a underlying level of power and see who has the most authority there. Okay, I agree. I'm glad somebody agreed with me. It was interesting, but I thought the very first quarter, if we had to break that in the quarter, I thought the first quarter went to Trump. And I want to pull up this video so y'all can see the very beginning. Because I thought the first quarter went to Trump. I want to get that handshake too. That handshake was pretty interesting. Give me 1 second. I want to make sure I pull up the right video because I got a couple of videos with some footage. Let's see. Yeah, we're gonna go with that one right there. All right, we're gonna take a look at just a little bit in the beginning, but I think the first 20 to 25 minutes or so, I thought Trump was in the lead. I thought he did a good job. It was as calm and as poised and as lucid as I have ever seen him. Now, I will tell you, I don't think the rules favored him. I don't think the rules favor him. And it was a little thing about the rules that I thought were kind of sketch, right? One, not having an audience, I think, was a disadvantage to Trump. I think he's someone who's, let's keep it a buck. This dude is a performer. I think he performs well in front of a live audience. I think he can kind of feed off of the energy. And I think he can read the climate of an audience. So I thought not having an audience was a disadvantage to him. What else did I think was a disadvantage? When it comes to the mic situation, right? It's interesting because I guess this rule was put in place when him and Biden had their debate. And it looks like it was a Trump rule. They were like, hey, after you answer your question, we cut your microphone off, right? And I'm a little indifferent about that rule because I understand why. I think that's a rule that actually helps Trump. I think cutting the microphone off after a question is a rule that actually favors Trump because Trump is more likely to go off script and just start talking, and that's not what you want. So I think that cutting the microphone off was favorable for Trump, but here it was weird. One thing that I didn't like is after he answered his question and his mic was supposed to be cut off, it was like they would cut it back off and let him keep talking and rambling, which is the exact opposite. You do not want him going off script trying to shoot from the hip, in my personal opinion. Trump was too defensive, agitated, and Kamala lacked substance. It was a draw. I agree. First round, though, went to Trump. Let's go and watch this first few minutes of it.
Their microphones will only be turned on when it's their turn to speak. No pre-written notes allowed.
All right, they said that, but once Trump finished his answer, and you could hear him talking, but you couldn't really, it was low. They would turn his mic back on. And I was like, that seemed a little inconsistent with the rules because talking on a hot mic is a disadvantage for Trump. I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat. I think a hot microphone, everybody will generally agree is, nah, we don't want them on a hot microphone.
There is no audience here tonight in this hall at the National Constitution Center. This is an intimate setting for two candidates who have never met.
President Trump won the coin toss and chose to deliver the final closing statement of the evening. Vice President Harris selected the podium to the right.
So let's now welcome the candidate.
All right, did he not want to shake her hand, or it was more of a power play? I think it was the latter and not the former. I think it was just a power play. Like, no, you come over here and shake my hand. I've been in corporate America a long time. That type of shit is normal.
Candidates to the stage: Vice President Kamala Harris and President Donald Trump.
Kamala Harris. Let's have a good debate.
She was waiting for him to meet in the middle because I think that's kind of normally what happens. And he was like, nah, fam. I'm not doing that. But that was a power play right there.
Thank you.
Welcome to you both. It's wonderful to have you. It's an honor to have you both here tonight.
Good evening. We are looking forward to a spirited and thoughtful debate.
So let's get started.
All right. I agree with your comment, Paul. I think it was exactly what you said overall, but this was a very good point. And again, watch, this guy was poised in the beginning. He did a great job.
I want to begin tonight with the issue that voters repeatedly say is their number one issue, and that is the economy and the cost of living in this country. Vice President Harris, you and President Trump were elected 4 years ago, and your opponent on the stage here tonight often asks his supporters, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? When it comes to the economy, do you believe Americans are better off than they were 4 years ago?
So I was raised as a middle-class kid. And I am actually the only person on this stage who has a plan that is.
All right, this is what annoyed me. Okay, like I don't know, maybe somebody else. I'm sure everybody. The question. I'm gonna just be honest. I'm gonna give you my answer to this question. If someone asked me, "Hey, when was your lifestyle better economically? During Trump time in office or during this time in office?" I'm probably gonna say during the Trump times in office. During Trump time in office, it is what it is. I get it. Policies stagger. So what a person does in year one doesn't impact until year 2 or 3 or 4. I get all of that. But I think generally, if someone asked me, when was things better? I'm going to say probably during the time when Trump was in office, because things were just lower. Inflation was lower. Interest rate was lower. Everything was generally lower across the board. And I don't know about everyone else, but I think generally during that time of the pandemic, Americans had saved more money than they've ever saved before. So, and it was partly because they couldn't go no damn where. Most of the states were shut down. So I also think that, once everything opened up, it was this influx of everybody spending. A lot of cash was flooded into the economy from all these pandemic relief programs. But if somebody asked me objectively what economic time was better, I would probably say the time during Trump was in office. That's just me being honest. I don't know what y'all think, but I think things were relatively cheaper, and that would be my take. Now, listen to the question and listen to the answer or the non-answer. This is the type of shit that pisses me off. Paul talked about it. Answer the question and then throw your stuff in. A lot of questions just weren't getting asked. People would just give whatever their pre-written response was, and that was really frustrating.
That they were 4 years ago?
So I was raised as a middle-class kid. And I am actually the only person on this stage who has a plan that is about lifting up the middle class and working people of America. I believe in the ambition, the aspirations, the dreams of the American people. And that is why I imagine and have actually a plan to build what I call an opportunity economy.
Now, that's a good speech, but she didn't answer the question. And these are instances where I think Trump really let her off the hook. If you're asked a question and you don't answer it, you pull out a canned response. You're supposed to immediately say, so which economy was better, mine's or yours? But it was just like he had a couple opportunities to take jabs, but he just didn't do it. But I still think he was relatively composed for the most part in the beginning.
Which will result in $5 trillion to America's deficit. My opponent has a plan that I call the Trump sales tax, which would be a 20% tax on everyday goods that you rely on to get through the month. Economists have said that Trump sales tax would actually result for middle-class families in about $4,000 more a year because of his policies and his ideas about what should be the backs of middle-class people paying for tax cuts for billionaires.
President Trump, I'll give you 2 minutes.
First of all, I have no sales tax. That's an incorrect statement. She knows that. We're doing tariffs on other countries. Other countries are going to finally, after 75 years, pay us back for all that we've done for the world.
And I'm going to be objective here. The beginning, I think he was strong. And I think that phrase right there is a very important phrase that generally most Americans would probably agree with. Yeah, we do a lot. America acts as the world police. And a lot of that causes resources, soldiers, troops, equipment. So I think generally most people agree with like, yo, y'all need to pay us back for everything we doing out here being the world police.
And the tariff will be substantial in some cases. I took in billions and billions of dollars, as you know, from China. In fact, they never took the tariff off because it was.
And I got a breakdown of each of their economic policies. I'm going to go through it. I was like, let me pull it up because most people making their decisions and haven't even visited the candidate's website. But I'm going to go through each of their economic policies.
So much money they can't. It would totally destroy everything that they've set out to do. They're taking in billions of dollars from China and other places. They've left the tariffs on. When I had it, I had tariffs, and yet I had no inflation. Look, we've had a terrible economy because inflation which is really known as a country buster. It breaks up countries. We have inflation like very few people have ever seen before, probably the worst in our nation's history. We were at 21%, but that's being generous because many things are 50, 60, 70, and 80% higher than they were just a few years ago. This has been a disaster for people, for the middle class, but for every class. On top of that, we have millions of people pouring into our country from prisons and jails, from mental institutions and insane asylums, and they're coming in and they're taking jobs that are occupied right now by African Americans and Hispanics, and also unions. Unions are going to be affected very soon. And you see what's happening. You see what's happening with towns throughout the United States. You look at Springfield, Ohio. You look at Aurora in Colorado. They are taking over the towns. They're taking over buildings. They're going in violently.
So I think he generally started out strong. And hey, shout out. I'm gonna call a fair point a fair point. Before the billions, I agree. I was doing well, brought my first house during the pandemic. I mean, those are some good years. And I'm telling you, man, in 4 years, my portfolio went crazy. We're gonna take a look at what the stock market do. We're gonna take a look at what the stock market did under each office. And we're also gonna look at what combination is most favorable for the economy. Republican president, Democratic Congress, which one generally has the best results over the course of time? Because everybody talk about what's better for the economy, but I like to look at the data. Yeah, a lot of people died while Trump was in office. Wasn't he encouraging bleach IVs? Hey, a fair point is a fair point. He said some wild stuff like, I think, nuking a hurricane or something like that. But I mean, I don't know. I know not everyone. Some people take what every politician says as absolute gospel. If someone wanted to, use Clorox to try to fight COVID, hey, that's an isolated situation. That's an isolated situation and probably not a smart idea to do. So I'll get. I'm not faulting. I'm not saying bad things didn't happen under his. I'm just talking about from an economic standpoint. I think times were better when Trump was in office. I think that one of the things he did was Trump tried to put an end to a lot of overseas operations that the military had going on. As a veteran, I'm not as a veteran who's been in the war and had to do some shit that most people don't have to do in their life. When it comes to shit like that, I'm like, we got to figure out a way to end some of that stuff. So I'll give credit. I give Trump credit for, despite whatever his rhetoric was about the pandemic, I actually give him credit because he bears a lot of the responsibility, and even Biden gave him credit for the creation of a vaccine so fast. So, I mean, nobody do anything perfect. I'm going to give him some credit, just like I give Biden credit. I get a lot of flack. People laugh at me and, this is terrible to say in the Black community. But Joe Biden did more in 4 years than Barack Obama did in 8. If you actually look at policy, look at what he recently did with prescription drugs and getting the cost for 20, 30 something drugs decreased. But nah, people don't want to hear that because they just think you hating, but nah, facts is facts. But I think generally at the start, the first quarter of the game, I was like, Trump is up. I'm going to show you exactly where he went wrong. I'm going to show you exactly where he went wrong. And when he proceeded to kind of go off the hinges a little bit. And it was interesting because everybody knew that this was the attacking point. Anybody who has been watching politics or vaguely familiar with Trump knew this was going to be the attacking point.
You will see during the course of his
of our country are absolutely dying with what they've done.
And I'm going to.
All right, this is where everything went wrong, right? Sometimes there's an old saying, sometimes you don't attack the policy or the person, you attack the ego. And once he said this, you could see his entire disposition change. Whatever the game plan was, he completely lost it because, again, he is someone who values his ability to persuade a crowd. People who support him. I'll give Trump credit. He cares about his supporters. He actually probably cares about what his supporters want more than any other politician, no matter what side they're on. But this is where he just kind of lost everything with this one comment.
Actually do something really unusual. And I'm going to invite you to attend one of Donald Trump's rallies because it's a really interesting thing to watch. You will see during the course of his rallies, he talks about fictional characters like Hannibal Lecter. He will talk about windmills cause cancer. And what you will also notice is that people start leaving his rallies early out of exhaustion and boredom.
So she can't talk about that. People don't leave my rallies. We have the biggest rallies, the most incredible rallies in the history of politics. That's because people want to take their country back. In Springfield, they're eating the dogs. The people that came in, they're eating
individuals with.
All right, I'm gonna skip that part because I tell you, these clips that you pull up, unless you go through the whole thing, depending on who published the clips, they're gonna skew it. So we all know eating dogs, eating cats. That's what he said, which was wild as hell.
Of pets being harmed, injured, or abused by individuals within the immigrant community.
Well,
All
I've
this,
seen people on television.
Let me just say here, this is
The people on television say my dog was taken and used for food. So maybe he said that, and maybe that's a good thing to say for a city manager.
I'm not taking this from
but
television.
The people are
I'm
on
taking it from
television
the city
saying their
manager.
dog was eaten by the people that went there.
Again, the Springfield city manager says there's no evidence of that.
For 52 years, they've been trying to get Roe v. Wade into the states. And through the genius and heart and strength of 6 Supreme Court justices, we were able to do that.
When Congress passes a bill to put back in place the protections of Roe v. Wade, as President of the United States, I will proudly sign it into law.
They have abortion in the 9th month.
Okay, so let's talk about this. I don't even enough of the clips. We're gonna look at some of the data point, but once she attacked his ego, he just kind of fell off the rails. So I agree with the comment that was made. I don't really like. I mean, I don't know. I left out kind of feeling the same way as I did when it all started. Her policies were relatively vague. Her questions were vague. The answers were vague. It didn't have a lot of substance. Trump had a good first quarter. Then the other 3 quarters, I'm gonna be honest, I was like, what the fuck, man? Like, what is this dude talking about? It got to a point where I was like, man, I don't even want to watch this anymore because the dude was just going on a tirade. So as far as me, I don't think it was. I mean, I guess if I had to give it to somebody, I would probably say that Harris was the more composed of the two, but I don't think her answers had any substance. So I don't judge a winner of a debate based on non-substance. Like that doesn't make a sense. My son was on the debate team, and the winner didn't go to the person who, oh man, they were really more poised and professional. No, the winner went to the person who had the facts to support their position. And I felt like I missed a little bit of those facts. So I really didn't know where she stood. So I was like, you know what? I need to go back and I need to look at their websites and find out who policy says what do they have, what plans they have. And I actually went and typed it out because I didn't want to miss anything. So I was like, okay, because I needed to know for myself, right? Let me see. I said, I needed to know for myself. Yeah. Bleachers for Trump said, I see the disinfectant that knocks it out in a minute. Okay, fair point. I don't know exactly what the quote was. All I'm saying is with any politician, like I said, none of them have done anything that substantially made my life significantly harder and or easier. You know what I mean? I think that's local elections are probably more important to most people, in my personal opinion. But if there were things that Trump did that I thought were good, there were things that he did that were terrible. There were some things that Biden did where I was like, that was actually decent. And there's some things that he did that was terrible. I wanted to focus and pivot and look at the economy. Let me see. Followed by, as you see, it gets in the lungs and it does tremendous number on the lungs. So it would be interesting to check that. Fair point. And I appreciate the quote. Like, hey, I always want to make sure everything is accurate. So let's go through the economic policies. I went through and broke it out because I'm going to be honest, I couldn't get what they were. I heard $25,000 for affordable housing. So I actually went to the websites, pulled it up. I wanted to know what each person was doing. All right, so we're going to look at Trump and Harris's economic policy. And we're looking at 7 categories, okay? Income tax, inflation, affordable housing, Social Security, prescription drug pricing, international trade deals, and illegal immigration. All right. Now, of course, we know that they both said, hey, no taxes on tips. We all know that Harris bit off Trump. Trump was the first person to put that out. Trump said no federal taxes, no Social Security taxes, no Medicaid taxes on tip incomes in June. And a few months later, Harris kind of took up that same position. I'm gonna just be honest. This is a good proposal, regardless of who said it, even though it's clear factually Trump said it first. But I just don't know how that is going to get done because that's something that the president can't do by executive order. So it would have to take Congress to agree on it, and it will be interesting to see if how that plays. Trump has further went on. I didn't update this, but he further went on to say that he's also in favor of no taxes on overtime wages, which would be crazy. Like no taxes on overtime wages is wild. Like I don't think that that's something that could get passed. But to his credit, the whole point of an election is to sell me a dream. You're supposed to sell me wolf tickets. I don't give a damn if you can't get it done. You need to tell me your ideas that I want to hear. And when you get in office, you may try to do some of them. You may not do shit. But the whole thing is to give me something that I want to hear. So that's definitely what he's doing. All right. So they both the same on the no taxes on tips. Trump added no taxes on overtime wages. Inflation. So with inflation, Harris has put out that she wants to implement a ban on price gouging for food and groceries. And she's going to do this by allowing the Federal Trade Commission and the Department of Justice to have more broad authority to go after companies who engage in price fixing. All right. Trump, when it comes to inflation, he notes that, hey, he's going to take a step on day one by executive order to fight inflation. And he notes 2 points of how he's going to do this. One, he plans to eliminate costly and burdensome regulations that add additional costs to goods and services. And two, he wants to attack inflation by boosting oil and gas production to bring down cost of energy and fuel. So those are kind of where they both fail when they're talking about inflation. All right. Next category is housing. And this was one where it was recent because when I went on Harris' page, at first it was nothing there, but then I think maybe the day before, the day of the election, she kind of put her stuff up there. So I was like, dope, that's good. Give me something I want to see so I can have some information so people can make an informed decision. All right, so Harris with her housing, this is actually pretty detailed. The effectiveness of any of these policies is up for debate, but hers is pretty detailed. So for housing, Harris essentially lays out 5 points. The first one is $25,000 to first-time home buyers. There's a condition who have paid their rent on time for 2 years. Number two, a first-time tax credit of $10,000 for first-time home buyers. Number three, increase home building by providing the first ever tax incentive to builders who build starter homes. And that's actually interesting because I've never even heard of a tax incentive for builders to build a type of home. It's the first time, but I mean, it's thinking outside of the box. And number four, expand tax incentives for builders who build affordable housing. So those are her 4 points that she outlined when it comes to tackling housing. And we go down to Trump. Trump essentially has 3 points. All right, one is, and this is kind of similar to what he said he's going to do with inflation with executive order. Number one is cut unnecessary regulation and raise the cost of prices of homes to include materials and labor costs. Two, reduce mortgage interest rates by reducing inflation. And three, open federal lands to allow for housing construction to put more homes in the market and lower the price of homes. So we just going through them each one by one so everybody know. And I pulled this directly off their website. So everybody know I ain't making it up, just pulling it out of my ass, okay? All right, taxes. All right, so we're going to start out with Trump for this one. For taxes, Trump wants to extend his Trump-era tax cut and further cut taxes for all incomes and businesses, and he wants to make his tax cut permanent. Also, he noted that Social Security would be tax-free. Currently, Social Security income is tax-free if you make less than $25,000 or less than $35,000 as a married couple who filed jointly. So those are his positions when it comes to taxes. Harris, she essentially says she will not raise taxes on anyone making less than $400,000 per year. She notes 3 particular points. 1, expand the child tax credit from $2,000 per child per year to $3,600 per child per year. 2, provide a child tax credit of up to $6,000 for newborn children in that first year. And 3, expand the earned income credit. And it's estimated, their team estimates that this would lower taxes on low-income families by an estimated $1,250 per year. Now, I always take the estimates as a grain of salt because we don't know who the people are, who the statisticians or the money guys, the economic analysts who pulled these numbers up. But she notes those 3 things, and that's both of their position on taxes. Next up is trade. All right. Let's start with Trump. A 10% tariff on all imports from all countries and up to a 60% import on Chinese imports. Essentially, what tariffs do is the whole point of tariffs is, 1, to be able to recoup some money from the goods and services that are coming in. But the more important thing is tariffs are designed to protect businesses in the United States. So if a vehicle from China come over and it's $50,000 and there's a 60% tariff on it, and that cost is passed to the consumer, chances are like, yo, I'm not paying that extra money. I'm gonna go see what Ford talking about or something to that effect. So that's kind of how the tariffs work. When it comes to trade, generally Harris has kind of been silent. There's really no nuanced policy or plan that she has out there. If y'all got it or y'all seen one out there, I went to the website, I couldn't find it. But if y'all went to the website and able to find it, y'all hit me up, drop it in the comment, let me know, put the link up where I can find it. Okay. Next up is medical. You're talking about healthcare, and Harris has a relatively detailed plan for this one. And it kind of flipped, right? On the trade stuff, Trump kind of had a little bit of, he was more heavy on what he wanted to do with trade regarding tariffs. Harris was a little bit silent on that. And then it kind of flips when we look at the medical stuff. Harris is kind of a little bit details there, and Trump is kind of relatively silent as it relates to healthcare. The 4 points that Harris mentions throughout her throughout her publications she has on her site is, 1, they want to cancel medical debt. That's going to be interesting. How they're going to cancel medical debt, I don't know, because if somebody went to a private hospital, but I don't know. Anytime I hear canceling any type of debt, it just seems like a far stretch because it's just so hard to do because you have private companies. It's not like all the hospitals are government run, and if it were, it would make it a little bit easier. But 1, cancel medical debt. 2, remove medical debt from credit reports. They've actually made some headway on that currently as well. There's been some changes when it comes to medical debts and credit reports. Speed up negotiations with Big Pharma to lower drug costs. This is one of the things that I actually gave Biden credit for maybe a couple of weeks ago. They got a certain list of drugs. I think it was like 30 specific drugs that they'll be able to negotiate prices for starting in 2026, but it would lower the cost of certain drugs, specifically drugs for insulin, dramatically. And expand the current cap that they have on insulin. As it relates to the medical stuff, Trump's team, his page was relatively silent. I looked through Agenda 47 and everything and couldn't find anything. If y'all got something out there, shoot it to me so I can know and I can get it out there. All right, next up on immigration. Now here we take another pivot. This is where Trump has a detailed plan, and just factually, I'm gonna just keep it a buck. Harris was a little wishy-washy. She said a couple of things, and now she's switching it up. I'm gonna read what I was able to get from the candidates on their website and what we could find, or what I could find just through open source research, what they essentially said. And I think everybody probably should know Trump's immigration policy, but he wants to establish a strict immigration policy. Illegal immigrants generally reduce wages, so he's in favor of mass deportation, potentially exploring some type of detention camps, and definitely expansion of the border wall. So those are Trump's policy. Now, when we look at what Harris wants to do with immigration, and this is one of the things that she get beat up on, and she should, because Biden gave her the task of, hey, you're going to be the person to get to the root cause of the border. And no matter who does what with the border, is probably going to be a colossal shit show. I don't care who you are, red, blue, donkey, elephant, camel, whatever. But border Harris's policy, which she has, is I don't know. It's interesting because initially her position was that the border wall was un-American, but now she states that she plans to spend hundreds of millions on actually securing the border wall. She did note that she is opposed to mass deportation. She also noted that she is opposed to family separation. Let me see. Until 1930, 50% or more of federal income was from tariffs. In 1913, the 16th Amendment introduced the citizen income tax. By the 1940s, tariff income dropped to near zero. And I agree with that. I talked about that in another video. Income taxes weren't meant to be as much as they are now, just historically. Income taxes were made for essentials like infrastructure, security, police force, law enforcement, fire department. And it just went down this rabbit hole of programs. But those are the policies that each party has outlined on their website that they got that you can actually kind of go look at. So I always tell everybody, most people are going to go through this whole election cycle and never visit a candidate's website. Go to their website, check out what they got, see what they got going on. Is always a great place to start. As far as that debate is concerned, I generally agree with Paul's position. I think early on, for the first 20 minutes, I thought Trump was relatively focused. He had a good demeanor. It was professional. Once his ego got attacked, I think he just kind of fell apart and showed a lot of instability. And I don't know, he just got super defensive and he wasn't able to focus on whatever the talking points were. But I also agree that the alternative is true too. I think that Harris laid out some plans, especially with housing. I think that's her big go-to with her economic opportunity plan. But some things she were vague on, and I think people want a lot more information so they can make a better decision. So as far as I'm concerned, I think most people would probably give the nod to Harris in that debate. I think it was relatively a draw. I mean, I think Harris handled the debate better, but I don't think she provided enough information to get those people who kind of lean in the middle to fall one way or another. And when we talk about the economy, this is interesting because now I want to look at, because everybody want to know who the economy was better under. We're going to actually take a look and see who the economy was better under. I found this dope website where you can click on the president's name and it'll show what the stock market did during that person's time in office. And you can hit 2 or 3 presidents and compare them. And shout out to Bill Clinton, because the stock market ripped when he was in office. That tech bubble, the dot-com boom, woo, Bill Clinton had the greatest economy probably of damn near any president in history. Let me go and pull up this chart so we can take a look at it. Let's share screen. Okay, this is the one we want. Let me see. Hopefully y'all can see that. Let me do it this way, okay? So now we can look. Now, the one metric we don't have on this, because, let's just think about it. If we're looking at data on the economy, we actually need to look at 2 things. We need to look at, well, you probably got to look at least 4 data points. This just shows stock market performance. So we can't really get a clear picture. We would have to see what the stock market performance was, but also counterbalance that with what inflation was, and also counterbalance that with what jobs reporting data showed. So we're just looking at one snapshot, and the only thing we're looking at is how the stock market performed under each president. So we're going to go to, just pull up Joe Biden's on the screen right now, and you can see currently the stock market from the time Joe Biden came in office to current is up 38.6%, which is not bad at all. 38.6%. He's been in office almost going into that. Going on year 4, he about to wrap up. That's not actually that bad, all things considered. Now let's take a look and compare it with when Trump was in office. All right. So interestingly enough, we can see this is actually a dope chart because we can see around this same time, President Trump had a slightly better stock market run than what Biden is having now. So it's going to be interesting to see how Biden and the stock market finishes out the year because Trump had a big boom. It went from where we are currently when Trump was in office, the stock market increased 39.9% from the time he came in office to where he would be currently. And Biden at the same time is at 38%. So right now, for the same amount of time that they each were in office, the stock market is performing the same. But Trump had an explosion the last few months of his term, and he ended off with the stock market finishing over 50%, 50.9%, which is relatively good. Now, let's just think about that first question. Which person had a better economy? The stock market was ripping. People had more money saved because things were closed. But also, we got to take into account inflation. Inflation was lower during Trump's time in office. And with that lower inflation, with that money pumped into the economy, with him having that surge at the end to get the market rally during his time in office from 39% to 50%, hey, I don't think anyone can argue. You can argue it, but I think if you objectively look at it, I think overall the Trump economy was a little bit better, and not necessarily because of stock market performance. It was just the cost of everything was down. Inflation was low, interest rates were low. Like during that time, people were getting I jumped on it. I was like, what, 2.2%? Oh no, I'm about to refinance this mortgage to get that low mortgage. But this is actually a dope chart if you want to take a look to see how economies are going, and you can compare. We got Biden in blue, Trump in red, then we got Barack Obama. Okay, if we look at the end of their first 4 years, Barack Obama actually had a higher economy than both Trump and, let me see. Wow. Yeah, Obama shit ripped. His shit ripped. At the same time in office right now, Trump and Biden are essentially neck and neck, right? Trump had 39.9% return. Biden is currently at 38.1%. And during Obama's time, he had a 67.9% return. And Obama finished his first term at 73.2%, Trump at 50.9%, like we talked about. But this is a dope chart. I think y'all this should be something y'all should take a look at. It's actually pretty dope to just kind of give you a little bit of granularity of what was going on. Yeah, I think we also have to factor in Biden had to have. Yeah, I mean it's a bunch of factors that make up how the economy goes. So this is just one metric when we looking at the stock market. But this is dope. You can compare it. God damn, George Bush. Man, god damn, George Bush. That shit was crazy. God damn. That's crazy work. Woo. Jesus Christ. Look at Bill Clinton shit. This is actually a dope chart. Look at that. The presidents who were in, okay, we're going to turn back to the current economy and the current candidates. But of the 3 presidents who I got up here who served 8 years, 2 terms, we got Bush, Obama, and Clinton. That's crazy. The market was down 26.5%. Obama was up 148% at the end of his 2 terms, and Clinton was up 228%. That's crazy as hell. Now I'm looking to see who. I'm trying to look to see who all these older guys. This shit ain't gonna jump like that because they don't have the economy like that. Nobody gonna jump like those new guys. Ronald Reagan wasn't bad. Yeah, Ronald Reagan wasn't bad. All right, we got one more chart I think we got to look at, and this one is interesting because, if you're a big economy guy, let me check out Wolverine comment. It says, I think we also have to factor in Biden had to deal with the results of the pandemic when he got in. The pandemic was just starting when Trump left. I agree. I agree with it, but I think that cuts both ways too. And this was a point that Trump made that was actually a fair point. And we saw as the jobs data came back, they said 800 or something thousand jobs were created. Then it was a little flustered, but I don't know. Data is hard to really read and get a clear picture of what was going on, because I think early on, before Trump lost his shit in the debate, before he lost his shit, he actually made a good point when I think Harris said something about the jobs that they brought in. And Trump's point was, no, those were really bounce back jobs, because during the pandemic, a lot of companies had to cut employees. And that was actually true. That's a true data point that economists across the board kind of have agreed with. So, it's interesting, man, to read the economy like that. I wonder how things would have been if Trump served during the whole pandemic, but we'll never know. Yeah, I know, because I think I don't know. That's a good question. That's a good question, because the pandemic don't happen to every fucking president. So I feel like that's just, what was the last pandemic? Like what? The bubonic plague or some shit? Like the last real pandemic, not like bird flu where we heard about it, or swine flu where we heard about it, but nobody gave a damn. So that was just one of those anomalies. But this last site is actually interesting, because this look at essentially which party is better, but which combination of Congress and president held by each particular party yields the best results in the stock market. What do y'all think? Do y'all think the economy do better if it's Republican Congress, Republican president, Democratic Congress, Democratic president, or if it's some type of split? Y'all will never guess what the outcome is, because I that was one of the things I looked when I dove down this hole. I was like, well, let me look at their policies and let me see which combination normally yields the best results for the stock market. I'm not talking about the overall economy as a whole. I'm just talking about the stock market. But let me go ahead and pull this up so we can look at it. The results are actually pretty interesting. All right, so this is which party is better. From 1926 to 2023, we have had Republican president for 47 years and a Democratic president for 51 years. The difference in returns between the parties is pretty stark. The average annual return on the S&P 500 when we had a Republican president was 9.2%. When we had a Democratic president, the S&P 500 return was 14.78% per year. Interesting numbers. Let's go ahead and go take a look at this chart. This is actually an interesting chart. I thought this was dope. I haven't seen a lot of people talking about this chart, but it's pretty dope chart. Okay. Let me see. I want to find. Okay. All right. So here's the situation. Okay. Situation is on the left. The number of years is in the middle, and on the right, the average return to the S&P 500. When we have a unified Republican, essentially Congress and the president are all Republican, that has happened for 13 years. And in that time, the S&P 500 returned 14.52%. When we had a united Democrat Congress president, that happened 36 years and an average return of 14%. A divided Congress with a Republican president happened 34 years and the return is 7.3%. So that particular outcome right there, that particular setup where you got a divided Congress with a Republican president happened 34 years, 7.33 return. So that actually provided the worst results. And the one that provided the best results, when you have divided Congress with a Democratic president, that happened for 15 years, and they yielded a 16.63 return. Now, I don't think that those numbers are generally indicative, but it's actually a good metric to see how it plays out depending on who has control of what. And as you can see, most times you're going to get some type of divide. It's very rare for it to be, Democrats had things unified for 36 years. That's pretty interesting and odd that it's that long. But the best production of results were a divided Congress with a Democratic president. And that was just the S&P 500, the 500 top most profitable countries. Is all interesting. At the end of the day, that I say with all of this stuff, let me see. I think the best point is that the economy is not really correlated to the president that much. There are more factors involved, such as taxes, monetary policy. I agree 100%. What dictates the economy is so many factors, and doing one thing, looking at one thing. Because even in the stock market, like, I don't know, like even in the stock market, people are like, oh, when you got this particular makeup in Congress and the White House, the return is 7%. But that may be for the S&P 500. But I guarantee you, during the Bush years, defense stocks were ripping. I know for a fact. Like if you had your portfolio in defense stock, Boeing, Brown and Root, all of those types of shit, man. So I agree 100%. The bottom line and the big takeaway is the bottom line and the big takeaway is when it comes to debate, people are going to root for their candidate no matter what. If you're a person who's in the middle, I don't think that debate tilted you one way or another. I think you probably will want to see another one. I know I want to see another one. I think Kamala Harris, I think Trump started out good. I think he fluttered at the end and he kind of just went completely off script. I think Harris was a lot more poised. I think she was more professional. I think she provided detailed stuff when it comes to housing, but some of the other stuff were a little vague. So I'm gonna need a little more information from her, and I'm gonna need Trump to stay a little bit more on topic. But I think I think it's a 50-50 split. I mean, I don't know if it's a real winner because I just don't judge a debate on who appeared more poised, because I try to look at the facts and what the plan is and all that shit. So that's kind of my take on it. And as quiet as it kept, where I live at is going to go blue anyway, so it really don't make a difference what I do. But, all of you guys, y'all make sure I don't give a shit who y'all vote for. Just make sure y'all do y'all due diligence. Don't just listen to one news over here or one news over there. Try to find out what's really going on. And at the end of the day, is not what goes on in the White House, and what goes on in your house is the most important thing. I think that's the best thing we can end this on. Hey, I appreciate it. Thanks, everybody. Y'all have a good one. Y'all take care. Be blessed. Be safe. Peace.